Speaker of the House Mike Johnson had to clarify the protection of female-only spaces in Congress after Representative Nancy Mace vowed to prevent Representative-elect Tim McBride, who now goes by Sarah, from using the women's bathrooms. But how did this whole fight over bathrooms start in the first place? Our next guest thinks it actually started with fighting for women's rights. Mary Rooke is the author of the Daily Caller column, and she joins us now to discuss this. So, Mary, take us through your argument, and how did this whole thing then start with women's rights?
I've been thinking about this for a really long time, just trying to break down the fight for feminism or the fight for women's spaces and figure out what this has done to our society. And one of the major things that I've come up with is the fact that it's born and bred transgenderism. So essentially what I found is that because of feminism and its fight to erode the distinction between the sexes, there's no longer a protected space for either one. And when you can't protect men's spaces, there's no one then to protect female spaces. And I think that that got lost along the way, especially in the conversation. So I think that if our society can go back to a time whenever common sense and respect and understanding of the dignity between the sexes can then become like the focus of the conversation, then we can bring it back around where women don't have to fight this hard to keep men in dresses out of our bathrooms, out of our locker rooms, out of our spaces where our teenage daughters are going to be going to change or play sports. I think this is just the insanity that we're at right now because we've no longer allowed men to come in and protect us.
You know, we had Orrin McIntyre making some of these points. It's just a really interesting moment because, I mean, can you speak a little bit about how the fact that, of all people, Nancy Mace is the one pushing the bill, and yet you point out as well, there's some contradictions going on here.
Yeah, I think the thing that I found that was so wild about this is that whenever you dig into her history, she was the one that fought to tear down this space for men. She is the first graduate of the Citadel, which is a military college over there in the South. And, you know, she uses this as a point of pride for her. Look at me. I was able to break down this door of sexism. I was able to break down this door of misogyny. And here I am now being able to stand here and fight for women. But what she doesn't understand is that her fight was not against sexism and misogyny. In fact, what her fight actually did was remove spaces where men can be formed that are just their own. And that is such an important part of our society. And I think that we're also seeing that bleed into the military as we talk about men in the military and women in the military and how they interact with each other, especially with the nomination of Pete Hegseth coming on board. I was looking into that, and I think it's just an insane reality that we're living in, where we have to say, actually, men and women are not the same. They can't compete for the same exact jobs because men are different. They are stronger. They are faster. They are more violent. And so they are more capable of being in the military. And so, no, your push into the Citadel actually removed their ability to form themselves in a way that could make them effective military officers because, as we all know, women need a space of their own in order to be able to perfect their feminism and their feminine quality of their life. And men need exactly that same. So when we're talking about Nancy Mace, I never want to, dissuade her or like push her off the chase of this because it's such an important fight, especially for families that have children. However, it is also just as important to recognize the fact that her fight is what brought in Sarah McBride into her bathroom.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was a former sports reporter. And so as a female, we would be there in like the NBA locker room with all the guys as they were changing. And I was always wondering, like, why does this have to be done in the locker room while they're in towels or sometimes not even? Right? Yeah. Like, it's a very strange situation to be in, but that was the job. Now, I'm a millennial and I came up with the girl boss era, right? We were taught that that was what you should be. This is what you should strive for.
Anything you can do, I can do better.
Exactly. And how does that add up in this phrase as well, in this time frame now that we're looking at?
I think that has been one of the most damaging thing to women is this girl boss era. because I'm the same. I'm a millennial, and I was definitely told, don't ever let a man hold you down. Don't ever let a man stop you from doing what you need to do. And I think that that is so toxic, because what it does is it pits men and women against each other, as opposed to saying you are partners in this life. So what you do to benefit him, he can do to benefit you. Instead of going about it in that type of relationship way, now we're saying you're enemies. And you must fight one another all the time, constantly. And I think that that's why you see this breakdown in marriage. I think that's why you see this breakdown in the bathroom situation. And I think that what we need to be doing going forward, generations like ours, that we're kind of lost. There's a group of women out there, we saw that in this election, who will vote for these kind of feminist female rights. But I think that these younger generations, as we are raising our daughters, as we are raising our sons, we need to explain to them that, yes, there is a difference in the sexes. However, there is not a difference in the sense that y'all have to be enemies. There is a difference in the sense that y'all are complement each other. And that is a divinely created difference that we should embrace and we should promote above all other things, because this life is a balance. And without that balance, we get this society that we're in right now, where Mike Johnson has to come out and say, I'm sorry, but you're a man and you can't be in the female bathroom.
It is. I mean, I know a lot of people out there feel the same way. It's cliche, but it is, like you said, just we have to talk about this, really, but we really, really, really do. So when it comes to the solution, you said something interesting earlier about a sort of positive promotion of the dignity or the virtues of men and women as being the answer. Can you say more about that? I mean, the way in which we should be talking about these things and pushing forward. So it is a positive vision of what men and women are and how they should work together.
We went through this same kind of period where we talked about toxic masculinity and how dangerous it was for men to be strong and how dangerous it was for men to be leaders. And I think that there is an important thing that we have to talk about in that men are great. Just as a general baseline, if women are great, then men are great. And we have to be able to talk about that freely and openly. And men have to be able to express themselves in a masculine way in our society again, or we're going to continue to get these situations where women are unsafe. I mean, if you look at the Michael Penny situation in New York, he did the exact right thing. He's on the subway car, he sees all these people being threatened by this man, and he takes action. And what does New York do to him? They try and demonize him, promote the idea of toxic masculinity, try and take him down. But what we need to be doing in our society is raising those people up as heroes. I wrote about it at the time, and one of the things that I thought was, there was a time in our country where we would have given him the key to the city. We would have raised him on our shoulders, had a parade for him, and thanked him for his service for what he did for those people in that car. And now he's in a jail cell. Now he's in a courtroom. Now he's fighting for his life. And I think that in order to move forward, we have to start talking realistically about this stuff and stop viewing it through this feminist lens of women are great and we have to promote them above all else. And men need to take a second or a step back. And I think that once we kind of put everybody back on that level playing field, which is where it always was, feminists like to believe that they were stuck in the kitchen, barefoot and pregnant, demonized. But in reality, they were praised above all else. When you think about your family, you think about what your mother did, the holidays that she made. I mean, we have Thanksgiving around the corner. I talked about this today. All the recipes I'm making are from my grandmother, my great-grandmother, my mother. These are the things that are being passed down from generation. Legacy isn't just for men. It's just a different type of legacy, and it's just as beautiful and honorable as what men have given us. And I think that as long as women can embrace that and really push that forward, then our society can do that course correction that is very, very much needed.
Now, Gen Z is becoming young adults now, and it seems to me, and tell me if you agree with this or not, but the Gen Zers that are out there, if they're based, they are completely based, right? We saw the frat boys at, I believe it was North Carolina, that were putting the flag back up. They're like, you're not doing that, you know what, here. And it seems like they understand the gender roles, right? They want to be women if they are women. They want to be feminine women. They want to be, returning to like nature and homemaking and like literally everything that our grandmas would have done.
Yeah.
Gen Z is out there going, we are going to reclaim this now.
Absolutely. And you know what I thought was so interesting is that as soon as the frats started rising up, putting their American flags out, showing their masculinity, being that kind of trailblazer in society that we used to see a lot, all of a sudden the sorority started flipping. I saw a ton of videos where they would go and ask these frat guys, who are you voting for in this election? And then they would say Trump. And then the girl next to him would be like, oh my gosh, this really cute guy is saying Trump. Now I've got to say Trump, you know? And so I think that that is the beautiful, natural way of course correcting. If men stand up, reclaim their masculinity, reclaim their leadership in our society, then women follow suit because we want to match. We want to be that naturally, inherently inside us. We want to be that complement to them. And so I think that that was such a beautiful example. I know a lot of people kind of laughed at that and brushed it off, but I saw this as like, okay, thank God my 4 girls will have someone later in their life to look up to, and it won't just be this guy who's going to crumble and fall when the first, instance of danger comes around them. Because I'm raising strong matriarchal women, as all women should, but they're also going to want to look for a man who understands his masculinity, who understands his role in the family, and takes up that sword.
Amen to that. What cracks me up about this debate now is when it comes to the old school men versus women stuff, it's always, what more do you want? I mean, I think a lot of young men feel this way. Women do better, right? More of them go to school. They do better in the workforce.
Yeah.
And then they're being told that they're terrible. And I think the main thing is to not only have them speak out, but make sure they're not bitter about it. Like give them positive ways to be who they are. Because there's a lot of bitterness on the part of young men for good reason, because they look around and say, what are you even talking about? If you're born in 2000, you're looking around at all the statistics like, why do we have to help women? They're doing better than men in every category, right? And that can be a problem. And so if we don't get back to this, I think, we're going to be in trouble. But I see the same positive trends with a lot of people out there.
Give us a final thought, a closing argument, if you will, of how we should actually start reclaiming some of this and how we should look at this going into the future.
I think that there is just as much negativity from the feminism side of our world is the same thing that we're getting from that kind of conservative red pill era for men. So women have feminism, men have red pill. And in both of those, like you said, there's bitterness. We have to let that go. We have to say, okay, from this moment on, we are going to go about life looking at the beauty of what God has given us, looking at the beauty of the balance between the sexes, and understand that I'm looking for a partner that believes the same thing I do. And how am I going to fight for her? How am I going to fight for him? And how am I going to fight for this couple together? And so I think that as we're going forward, the first step is to attack the transgender issue head on, which comes through feminism, and understand that as long as we stop pitting the sexes against each other, as long as we stop putting women over men and put it back on that balanced playing field, I think that our society will then eventually just correct itself, as we're already seeing with the frats and the sororities.
I love it. This is the silver lining for the bathroom story, that we can take this and we can learn from this and we can do good from it.